Theo and I are back with 10 bold predictions for Week 7 for fantasy football for the rest of the year, helping you win matchups, helping you win leagues. This is our job. The last video we did last week with this topic broke the internet, set a record at Player Profiler because you all were liking the show. You all were sharing the show. We appreciate it. We want to keep this going. We're only going to do this show if we set records. So we're going to set another record this week and then another record and another record, but that's predicated on you liking the show and then getting your whole family to like the show. And then it just cascades and cascades and cascades. And then as soon as we stop setting records, we're going to stop doing the show.
We're dropping our 10 bold predictions for Week 7 and beyond. And in Week 7, Matt, we get maybe the NFC game of the year. You have the Minnesota Vikings, Detroit Lions, Minnesota coming off of a bye week. Last week, we saw Detroit come off of their bye week and absolutely steamroll the Dallas Cowboys. This week, the tables are turned. They get to play against a fresh Minnesota Vikings. We also have seen the Detroit Lions lose Aiden Hutchinson, their main pass rusher, one of the most feared defenders in the NFL. This game, to me, screams shootout. And who is going to shine in a shootout? Justin Jefferson. We haven't seen Justin Jefferson have a true Jeffersonian-like performance yet this year. His season high is 23 PPR points. I think he drops 35 this week on the Lions. Start Justin Jefferson in DFS. This is going to be the start of Justin Jefferson season. You get back TJ Hawkinson in a few weeks. This offense is going to be pointing upwards in the passing game. Everything about Minnesota is going to be coming up, and I think they get the win as well over the Lions.
I love this game, but you do know that game, it doesn't even have the highest over-under. The highest game total is Panthers at Commanders, 51.5. A lot of points to be scored. Panthers at Commanders, but more fantasy assets will be in play with Lions at Vikings, and I love that. I love this being a Justin Jefferson face-melting week, one of those 40-point weeks. They're out there. Those red dot games are out there, right? Where, you pull out the red ball. Oh, there goes Justin Jefferson. Oh, everyone else is vaporized. This is a red ball game for Justin Jefferson. I'm excited for it. Now, I have a pretty bold prediction. You let me know if I'm crossing the line. Audience, let me know. Put it in the comments. Am I crossing the line? Because these are supposed to be bold. Maybe I'm going to a place where they're becoming ridiculous. I don't want to be ridiculous. I want to be bold. Isaac Gendo will be a league winner this year. That is my prediction. He is going to be a week winner this week because Jordan Mason has donned the non-contact jersey. Isaac Gendo is one of the most explosive running backs in the NFL. You look at size-adjusted athleticism. That's what our athleticism score on Player Profiler measures. He was the number 1 running back in this 2024 class. He's a playmaker. He's a big-time playmaker at a level, an order of magnitude higher, better than Jordan Mason anyway, even when Jordan Mason's healthy. Right now, Jordan Mason can't take any contact. It was a pretty gruesome looking injury. There was a lot of concern with the medical staff on the field. Typically, those players miss the next game. So I am scooping Isaac Gendo in every league. I am preparing to activate him in my lineup. And then it's a very low bar for him to prove that he's just a better option than Jordan Mason. And then there's the question of, will Christian McCaffrey return at all? He comes back from the IR. Maybe he has a setback. Maybe he has to go back to Germany. There's a lot of possibilities here. Now that the 49ers defense is degraded from last year, they have to turn up the pass volume, have to turn up the pace of play, score a lot more points, just more opportunity for the running back in San Francisco to score fantasy points than we've seen in recent memory. It's all teeing up for zero RB teams and savvy fantasy managers grabbing Gendo, winning leagues with yet another guy off the waiver wire.
All it takes with Gendo is a couple of plays. You saw the 76-yard run. I'll throw out Raheem Mostert, San Francisco, like having a back with that sort of explosiveness. We've seen it in the Shanahan offense. You heard after the game, Deebo Samuel and George Kittle were being interviewed after the win, and they said he reminds them a little bit of Mostert. With Gendo, he can work into a committee and still help you win the week because big play ability, like you referenced, one of the highest speed scores all time at the NFL Combine. You also talked about how this is sort of the year of attrition, the year of the backup running back, Tyrone Tracy. 2 weeks in a row, we've had Tyrone Tracy. We saw him do it with 100 rushing yards. Now we've seen him do it with the receiving ability that he has. Former wide receiver at Iowa, transfers to Purdue, becomes a running back. We see him do it against Cincinnati as a receiver. The rushing yardage was not there, but the Giants fed him. And I think we see it sort of all come together. And this is a kind of a double bold prediction. The New York Giants, despite losing Andrew Thomas, they are going to upset the Philadelphia Eagles. They get Malik Neighbors back this week. They're going to upset the Eagles in New York this week in the Meadowlands at MetLife Stadium. And Tyrone Tracy is going to give you 20 fantasy points. And any notion that Devin Singletary comes back and takes his old job back is going to go completely out the window. Tyrone Tracy is a rest of the season, locked in mid RB2 with juice. Athleticism, we love him at Player Profiler. We all have a ton of them at Player Profiler. And I think he gets you a 20-pointer in the upset win this week. Get him in your lineups and get him in your DFS lineups.
Joe Schoen, you say what you want about some of the decisions he's made as the general manager. Punting Saquon Barkley and then going out and grabbing Tyrone Tracy on day 3 of the NFL draft, a guy that's comparable to players like Aaron Jones, athleticism, all-purpose skill set. Getting a guy like that day 3, that's a masterstroke. So I'm all on board. I'm all on board for these late-round running backs coming in and leading fantasy teams into the playoffs. And then it might not be that guy. It might be another guy that actually wins you the championship. But most fantasy championships, there's 1 or 2 free agent running backs that were fueling the drive to the playoffs and eventually winning the fantasy championship. And Tyrone Tracy, so the best version of that we have right now in the NFL. My bold prediction is that Demario Douglas and Jalen Polk are both going to be usable in fantasy football this week. Jalen Polk's going to get there, going to give you 10-plus fantasy points. He's going to have a breakout week against the Jaguars. It's the perfect matchup for an outside receiver like Jalen Polk to finally break through. He's just another rookie receiver that's just waiting for a breakout. And then Demario Douglas has been playing excellent. He's been the target leader, especially with Drake May under center. And you look at his athleticism. I mean, this is an explosive playmaker. This guy has a 90-plus percentile burst score on Player Profiler. Sure, he's small, but he went to Liberty. He was unheralded coming out of college. But to be as productive as he was as a rookie, and then to start to carry that over and be the go-to receiver for Drake May, there's a lot to like when you're looking at the receivers in New England, all the way through to Hunter Henry. The team to find under-the-radar production at the wide receiver position moving forward are the New England Patriots. All this garbage time they're going to get, a lot of targets, a lot of air yards to go around, and the biggest beneficiaries of that are going to be Demario Douglas and Jalen Polk, and they will outscore as a unit. These 2 players, Douglas and Polk, will outscore Calvin Ridley and DeAndre Hopkins this season.
Yeah, I love it. I'm totally there with you. And it comes down to having a functional quarterback. Where would Tennessee have been if they would have found a way to trade up and get a Drake May or a Jaden Daniels or a Caleb Williams in this draft class? Instead, they go with Will Levis. Offense is stuck in the mud. I love what you had to say about Demario Douglas. Polk, we're still sort of waiting for. This is a guy that was a second-round pick, but the 6th-round pick from the 2023 draft, Matt, now has 9 targets in 3 out of the last 4 weeks. That's an elite target earning to get that sort of target share. And 9 targets with Jacoby Brissett doesn't really amount to anything. But 9 targets with Drake May, it gave you his season high. He had 20-plus PPR points. And this week, they go up against a Jacksonville Jaguars secondary that is just awful. So we like starting Pop Douglas. I had Pop Douglas as my number 1 wide receiver waiver wire ad. You can go read that article right at playerprofiler.com. You can watch it right here on Player Profiler YouTube. But for me, I almost said a different Drake, because my next prediction is also about a wide receiver, but I'm not, looking down in the weeds like you are for like the Patriots wide receivers. I'm going at the creme de la creme, and I'm calling out a player to become this year's wide receiver 1 overall, not just a wide receiver 1. Everything is set up right now for Drake London to be the wide receiver 1 overall. Drake London is averaging 17.5 points per game, but Matt, he gave you a nothing burger in week 1. But I think Drake London, everything is setting up for him to finish as the wide receiver 1 overall. He's averaged 20.3 PPR points per game since week 2 started, and everything is just pointing up and up and up with the Atlanta Falcons offense. He is the focal point of the offense. Bijan gave us 25 points last week, but Bijan sort of has a capped ceiling. The league winner out of Atlanta, Drake London, and he finishes as the wide receiver 1 overall. I think you're going to see more and more spike weeks out of him as he gets more and more chemistry, gets a little more acclimated with playing with Kirk Cousins. You're already seeing it look great. Wait till we see it in like week 10, week 11. And Atlanta is going to push all the way into the playoffs with this group as well.
Poor Kyle Pitts. Kyle Pitts, there was a chance that he could be the go-to receiver in this offense, but if Kyle Pitts is not going to be the go-to receiver, if we have Drake London now, the established alpha, there's no way that you're going to get value from Kyle Pitts. I also think that this makes Kyle Pitts a sell because I'm buying Drake London as you are. I'm also buying Darnell Mooney. Darnell Mooney is going to outperform. I mean, think about the receivers that Darnell Mooney could outproduce this year. I mean, Darnell Mooney could outproduce Devontae Adams. Darnell Mooney could outproduce Jalen Waddle. Darnell Mooney is going to outproduce Chris Olave. There's a number of premium wide receivers in the NFL, and Darnell Mooney is going to outproduce all of them because he was productive early in his career when it was just him in Chicago. He is a downfield playmaker, and as Kirk Cousins regains more strength and confidence in his body, in his throwing arm, everything, that's going to mean yet more fantasy points for Darnell Mooney. Stretching the field, his stretching of the field actually also helps Drake London underneath. So I love that. I love the Falcons offense. I agree with you 100%. Back to another Drake, my Drake, Drake May. He is teed up to be a top 12 fantasy quarterback the rest of the way. For all the reasons we like these Patriots receivers, the negative game script, the comeback mode, the garbage time. Drake May is going to be the one taking the most advantage of this, and already we're seeing him rushing for 40 yards in a game. He's athletic. He runs a 4.55. He ran a 4.55 in high school at 6'4", 220. That makes him comparable to Josh Allen.
Josh Allen. There you go. Josh
Allen on playerprofiler.com. And because of the rushing upside, whenever you see one of these quarterbacks give you that rushing upside that you're getting from a Jaden Daniels, from a Josh Allen, from a Lamar Jackson, it's not fully appreciated what Drake May delivers in the run game yet, but it will at the end of the season. Once you add up all the fantasy points, you're like, how is this possible? He's going to outscore Aaron Rodgers. He's going to outscore Justin Herbert. He's going to outscore Matthew Stafford. Love Drake May as a plug-and-play option in fantasy football in all formats.
Matt, you nailed it. Big, strong, fast, rocket launcher arm. And he's also, like you said, willing to put his head down and scramble. Led the New England in rushing yardage this past week. And he led UNC in rushing yardage 1 year, which is significant. You're talking about big-time college football, and he led them in rushing yardage. This is a guy with a ton of rushing attempts as a collegiate.
There were a number of teams begging the Patriots to move up. What do you want? How many first-rounders do you want? And at no point were the Patriots even considering trading down because they were locked into Drake May.
I'm going to go with a little bit older, a little bit more experienced quarterback, but really a year 2 quarterback when it comes down to it, and it's Jordan Love. And last year we saw Jordan Love finish as QB5 overall, had his big breakout, ends up getting that massive contract this offseason. The Brazil game, everyone is ecstatic with what they see. Jordan Love starts out the year in Brazil. They lose the close game, but he ends up coming out looking like you want to see, gets the late injury, and it felt like the season was over. But then he's able to bounce back, only misses 2 weeks. And what he's been able to do since he got back from injury is just crazy. Jordan Love now leads the NFL in touchdown passes per week, a weekly average of 3 touchdown passes a week. He's trailing Baker Mayfield for the most touchdown passes overall. I think he can catch Baker Mayfield. And I think when you look at ADP into the context here, like Lamar Jackson has been fantastic. Jaden Daniels, who was drafted a little bit later than Jordan Love, has been unbelievable. But at the end of the day, I think Jordan Love, there will be more fantasy managers with Jordan Love in their starting lineup than with Lamar Jackson or with Jaden Daniels when we look at win rates for the quarterback who leads fantasy teams to championships.
My next bold prediction is for a wide receiver. A wide receiver who is quietly breaking back out and re-announcing himself to the fantasy public. Oh, I'm a top receiver. I'm going to be a top 12 option this year. I'm going to be a wide receiver one in fantasy football. And that's T. Higgins. T. Higgins is that guy. T. Higgins has a 75th percentile speed score, so he has the speed and the athleticism. He's best comparable to Roy Williams. If anyone remembers Roy Williams of the Cowboys, it's a great comp for him. And he looks the part of an outside alpha receiver. Now, in the context of the Cincinnati Bengals offense, he's a beta. Understood. If it's Jamar Chase moves all around the formation like a queen chess piece. T. Higgins is out there dominating perimeter corners. He's proven he can do it season after season. He's had to deal with a wide variety of injuries, shoulder injuries, hamstring injuries, but he is healthy. And he's healthy just in time to go after that big contract. Cincinnati does not have the money to afford T. Higgins next year. He is going to be an unrestricted free agent. He knows it. The Bengals know it. Everybody knows it. And he is going to put up a stat line this year to get paid. You can already see it in the advanced metrics on playerprofiler.com. He has a top 10 target share, a top 10 red zone target share, getting 1 to 2 red zone targets per game already, a top 20 air yard share. And you look at the situation they have in Cincinnati, their defense has been leaking talent for years. They have to throw the ball in order to be competitive. No running game, no defense. That means Burrow with 40 dropbacks a game. And who's that going to benefit besides Jamar Chase? Of course, T. Higgins, baby. T. Higgins outproduces Tyreek Hill, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Garrett Wilson this year. All first-round picks in fantasy football. T. Higgins outproduces each guy on his way to a top 10 season and a big old bag of money.
Yeah, I mean, I think you nailed it, Matt. And I think objectively, if we look at the makeup of NFL rosters and the value we've seen with free agent wide receivers, who's going to command more money in an offseason, Calvin Ridley or T. Higgins? And we look at what Calvin Ridley was able to get last year. T. Higgins also, there are certain franchises that will overpay youth. Jacksonville's a great example. When Christian Kirk was on the open market, he got a lot more money than people anticipated because he was a young veteran. T. Higgins gives you that young veteran, and also he's really, really good at football. So T. Higgins is going to come off of a career year, and it's a perfect storm for him because I think any team without a alpha wide receiver one is going to look to add T. Higgins. I think the market for T. Higgins objectively is going to be about as competitive as we've ever seen for a free agent wide receiver. I'm with you. I think T. Higgins is going to have a terrific rest of the season. He already looks really good right now, and he's got that connection with Joe Burrow. And if you have a chance to add him in redraft or in Dynasty, he's a great trade target. He's a perfect Dynasty trade target no matter what your team makeup is, Matt, because if you're in rebuild mode, T. Higgins might be on a team where all of a sudden he's a 140 target guy and he gets away from Jamar Chase potentially with a good quarterback. So, yeah, I'm all about that one. And for me, my final bold prediction, it's not even really that bold. I think it's just a accurate one. David Njoku and Evan Engram, it's sort of a turn back the clock week. We saw it last week with Evan Engram's big week, and we saw David Njoku take a step forward in terms of usage. Now what do you get? You get a perfect storm. You get Amari Cooper getting traded to Buffalo. There is not a weapon on Cleveland that's going to prevent David Njoku from being the consistent number one target in the offense. Last year, we saw David Njoku finish as the tight end 6 overall. But if you look at it in context of the second half of the year, he was closer to a top 2-3 play at the tight end position. He helped people win leagues. The two tight ends that really helped people win leagues down the stretch last year, David Njoku and Evan Engram. Both of these players are going to return to what they gave you down the stretch last year. They both finish as top 5 tight ends rest of the season.
Okay.
Yeah, rest of the
this
season.
Week,
I'll go a little.
This
week I think that both of them. I mean, it doesn't matter the week. Both of these guys are in your starting lineup, and like a team we're sharing, Matt, we have a Kings Classic team where we have a Brock Bowers team, David Njoku in the flex for us this week.
Oh, we're flexing David Njoku. If you don't have that kind of luxury, if you don't have both Bowers and Njoku like Theo and I have in the Kings Classic, you could stream Grant Calcaterra. Grant Calcaterra is an athlete. Grant Calcaterra is the plug-and-play tight end option for those of you that are suffering with a bye week or have a tight end that's injured, like Dallas Goedert, for example. That's the easy one. Calcaterra is an interesting option this week as a desperation streamer. I like him a lot. I also like Kanani Vidal. Kanani Vidal is my final and favorite bold prediction for this week. He is best comparable to Isaiah Pacheco on playerprofiler.com because it runs a 4.46, even though he's 215 pounds. So he's got a super speed score, great burst, also size-adjusted agility. An 11.16 agility score is 79th percentile. Then you size adjust it. This guy's like 90th percentile lateral agility. And he's on a team now where he is the primary backup to a running back that has experienced significant, gruesome lower body injuries year after year after year. This team, the Chargers, they've invested more into the offensive line than any other team the last couple of years. Their coach is a run-first coach. Everything is teed up. Everything for Kanani Vidal to be elevated eventually into the starting role. And I believe that at the end of the season, he will be leading fantasy teams to championships and will lead the Chargers in rushing by the end of the season. Help us set the record again and again and again. Like this show. Have your cousin like this show. Send it on social media so that people you don't even know will like this show. Have the bots like this show. We're killing it. We're going to keep coming back as long as you support us.